Week 3, day 3, and our focus, boys and girls, will be vocabulary. In class, on your first 2 days, we read about the story Because of Winn, Dixie. And from that story, we have a selection of 7 vocabulary words that we had in the story that we didn't get a chance to talk about in class, but you guys will have to do. Now today, and this whole rest of this week for ELA, I'm going to say this first, is we're going to attempt to submit our stuff via electronically. So we worked with it a little bit in class. We showed you guys how to go in, how to open something in Word, how to turn it in. Give that a try first. So after you're watching this video, you're going to go into, you're going to see a Microsoft Word attachment. You're going to open that attachment. You're going to go in and you're going to type in your answers, and then you're going to be able to send that work back to me through the Turn-In app. So you add that attachment. So we worked on that in class, and if you forgot how to do it, no biggie. That's why I gave you that hard copy. So you have that hard copy that we gave you, so you can take home just in case you forgot. Technology sometimes works great, and we're new at this, so we're still trying to learn that. So your assignment is still the same, either if you're going to type your answers on your iPad here through Microsoft Word, or if you're going to just write them out. If you're going to write them out, bring them to me on class. Come back to day 1. Day 1, you'll hand these back to me. The only difference is, those of you that do it electronically, I'll be able to submit it back to you. So if I like a sentence, I'll be able to say, hey, I really like your detailed sentence in there, because that's what we're going to be looking for. When you see that worksheet, it is 7 sentences. That's all you need to do, but we want some good detailed sentences. So before we get started with that worksheet, let's talk a little bit more about vocabulary. And we talked about those 3 words last week as fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary. And if you remember, I had that little note card. Comprehension deals with our skills that we'll be talking about, and fluency is the rate at which you read. And we talked about when we are reading in 4th grade, we read how we talk, meaning we don't read super fast. And if we read super slow, that's perfectly fine, but sometimes if we do read super slow, what happens is those ideas get a little farther stretched out, and we have to kind of, reread something so it makes sense a second time. Because when we reread things, when we reread things a second time, boys and girls, it gives us exposure to those words, and we become more fluent. So that's why in class, we practice reading a story a second time. So vocabulary is our focus. So vocabulary, the more exposure that you get to words, the better your vocabulary is going to be. And I sometimes relate vocabulary to like art. If you pick up a pencil and a paper for the first time ever, you're not going to be a great artist. You're going to have to practice at it. You're going to have to learn some strategies. Same thing with vocab. If you're just reading for the first time kind of on your own, well, you're not going to be getting as much words as a kid who reads 25, 30 to an hour a day at their own time in their leisure. So it's a very important skill and a habit, boys and girls, that you want to pick up, to read for enjoyment, read for pleasure, because what you get out of it is actually you pick up vocabulary words. Now, if you're not picking up vocabulary words when you're reading, it's probably because you're reading a level that is too easy. If you remember last week, I brought up Cat in the Hat. Cat in the Hat's a good book. It's cute. Helps you work on your fluency and rhyming and all that stuff, but you're not getting any vocabulary words out of Cat in the Hat. So 30 minutes of reading Cat in the Hat versus a chapter book at your own level, there's a big difference between those two, okay? So as we continue this year, and when I do my ELA lessons, you're going to hear me give you these 4 or 5 minute little speeches here about what vocabulary and comprehension and fluency all do towards our reading. And hopefully this is now our 3rd week of school and our 2nd week of videos here. You guys are getting a little better understanding of what it takes to be a good reader. We talked about metacognition, if you remember, way back to our 1st week. And now we're really focusing on comprehension, fluency, and vocabulary. Okay? So the amount of exposure that you get to words, and movies movies aren't bad. The more you watch movies and TV shows, you pick up some books, or you pick up some vocabulary too. However, still reading, you want to be able to read that from a text versus just hearing it. Your actual hearing vocabulary, especially mine, is higher than your reading vocabulary. And then your reading vocabulary is also higher than what we call your speaking vocabulary. So there's kind of like a level of, you can listen to people talk. Sometimes that's why, as you're a kid, your parents talk about things that you have no idea what it's about. So example, 2-year-old right now, my son, I can have a conversation, an adult conversation, he's not going to understand all of it. Versus if my 10-year-old daughters are hearing this conversation, they're going to be able to piece a lot more together because everybody's listening vocabulary is higher. And then everybody, adults included, and your reading vocabulary is a little lower than your listening vocabulary. And the very last one is your speaking vocabulary. And that comes higher, your speaking/writing vocabulary, the way you use different words. That comes up too, and it gets closer to your reading vocabulary by, of course, again, exposure, by the amount you read. Okay, so now, if you want to open that attachment, you can. And again, we taught you how to split screen in class. If you want to do that and you have that all set up and you're ready for us, if not, look right on that page, or you can come back to it later. But I'm going to go over these 7 words with you. The first word that we had was memorial. And if you remember from our story, we had a memorial library. It was named after her father. And a memorial means helping people to remember some person, thing, or event. And we have a holiday in our country called Memorial Day, which is we memorialize or we remember those that served our country and unfortunately had passed away. Now, it doesn't have to mean that they passed away from battle, but they could have, passed away from old age and they at once served our country. So that's called memorial, and we have a day called Memorial Day, helping people to remember some person, thing, or event. Next word, number 2, prideful. If someone is prideful, they have too high of an opinion of yourself. We talked about this word also, vain. We talked about Iron Man. Tony Stark is a little too prideful. He's a little too vain. He thinks everything's kind of about him. Boastful is another word that you hear. You boast or brag. You think everything is just, the best. Prideful, if you think at the end of the story, the old pinch face Amanda Wilkinson at the end there, they said that she sounded a little too prideful because she was saying, all the books I read very high level. Just the way she talked. We know that other character, had a very high opinion of herself. So we could call her a very prideful person. Let's go to number 3, recalls. To recall something means to call back or to remember. If you recall the most wonderful reindeer of all. Think of the beginning of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I know it's only beginning of the school year and I'm singing Christmas tunes already, but in the beginning of that story, he's asking, but do you recall the most wonderful reindeer of all? And then he goes, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right? So what is he saying? But do you remember, or do recollect is another word too that you hear. The most wonderful reindeer of all. So to recall something, I told you I like to sing, is to remember, to recall something. And usually when we're doing math facts, you want to recall your math facts at a high rate. You don't want to sit here and wait for 7 times 3. Hold on, I got to count by 7. 3 times. Hold on. Nope, we got 21. 7 times 3. 21. Recall. Next word, peculiar. If something is peculiar, it is strange, odd, or unusual. And if you remember in our story, the librarian, Miss Franny Block, back when she was younger, not with Amanda, but she was talking about the story where she's alone and by herself, and she had a very peculiar smell. And we found out that obviously it wasn't a person coming in, but it was a bear that came into her library. So strange, odd. So peculiar can be things that look, act. You act peculiar. You act odd. You act strange. Sounds, peculiar noise. If you hear a peculiar noise in the middle of the night, it kind of startles you. So peculiar. Next word, number 5, grand. Grand simply means excellent or very good. Usually you'll hear the word a grand gesture. If you give someone a gesture, it means, you acknowledge them or you tell them that they did such a good thing. But a grand gesture means you do something very nice for someone. So you'll hear that phrase a lot, a grand gesture, meaning you're giving someone a lot of praise or you did something super, super, super nice for someone. So that word just simply means excellent. You did very good. And the last two, the next one we have is positive. Positive means there's no question about it. I am 100% without no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind. And doubt means question. So without question, my favorite football team is Buffalo Bills. There's no question. I don't have to think about that one. But then if someone said, who's your favorite hockey team? Well, I have to kind of question that. I kind of like the Sabres, but I kind of like a couple other teams. Okay? Question. That means you're not quite sure. Positive means yes, I'm 100% sure. I know I'm positive. There's no doubt. I'm 100% sure. And the last word is selecting. And selecting means to pick out or to choose. All right? So that concludes our video. I kept this one very short, boys and girls. Make sure you go into your assignments and you have 7 sentences. Now make sure your sentences start with a capital letter. You're using that sentence very well, meaning it's not short. You also can't say, the word memorial is in this sentence, or I have to write a sentence using the word prideful. We don't know what that meaning is. So try to have the meaning be in your actual sentence. So for all of them, you could have said, I like the word memorial. I like the word prideful. I don't like the word recalls. I like the word peculiar. I like the word grand. I like the word positive. I like the word selecting. Don't do that. You will get it back and you will have to redo those sentences. So make sure we can get meaning from that sentence and don't just give me plain old, basic sentences like that. Capital letters, make sure we can kind of get the meaning from the sentence. And I like to go 7 up is a thing that you've heard, meaning you should have at least 7 or words or more. I'm hoping you have a lot more than 7 words per sentence here, especially since you have just 7 sentences to do, okay? So that's going to conclude our video. And again, give it a try on Microsoft Word first. You can go right in there and start typing those in, and it should be able to save automatically like we did in class. And then you can go in and find it and submit it in to me where it turns in. If you gave up, you tried it, something wasn't working, technology wasn't your friend that day, use the hard copy that I gave you in class. You just have to turn that into me when you come in on your day 1. Okay, boys and girls, take care. I will see you on your next day, day 4.